We are talking this evening about lots of the challenges and difficulties that people experience throughout life, not just this year, but we'll come on to that in a moment. And I've got two lovely guests here tonight who are going to be our experts, who are going to talk about some of the problems that clients experience, and maybe some of these you resonate with as well. Certainly we're going to talk a little bit more later about that, about what could go wrong, what you could be experiencing with these problems, and then some tips on how you can start to make some changes that might give you some kind of help or relief in certain aspects of the problems that we cover. So I just want to introduce to you Anne and Marilyn tonight, and I'm just going to go first to Anne to say, Anne, just say hello to everyone and tell us a little bit about you.
Hi everyone, welcome. My name is Anne. I'm a therapist. I've been a therapist for many, many years. And what I've also added into
that might give you. Sorry, that's must be the Facebook feedback. How can I mute that?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep, that's
all
fine.
Right. Sorry, okay. So we're all exploring and learning these new technologies. And what I do actually is I've added in over the years many holistic therapies as well, in order to basically broaden the base. That is me.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And just say hello to Marilyn then.
Hello. So I'm a grief recovery specialist. So I specialize in bereavement and any kind of loss. And I take my clients through a process in order to kind of not be stuck with grief and handle their pain better and be on the other side.
Right.
And help them moving forward with grief. That's one thing that is very important.
Yeah, definitely. So we will go into lots of the details around this, because we've all got some stories as well to help out, really. And then, of course, like, we'll go to some questions from the audience as well. Should people have some questions that they might want to ask for some guidance on, and we'll put I've already put the contact details for both Anne and Marilyn into the chat, but I will post them at the end of the session so that you've got access to them and you can reach out to them through direct messenger on Instagram, or even, I think Marilyn's got Facebook and Anne's got an email address, or somewhere, or other way around. I'm not sure about that, but anyway, we'll give you all those details so you can get in touch should you need to. But so firstly, I just wanted to talk about some of the problems that people experience, and knowing that this year has been a bit of a challenge for everyone in lots of different ways. And it's meant people may have had additional pressures in their life that they haven't had to experience, which may have made them stresses that they already had existing become worse, like be exacerbated further. And so firstly, if I can come to you, Anne, and talk to you about what are some of the problems that some of your clients would experience that you're working with on a regular basis, sort of thing, around stress maybe, and even finances and whatever that might kind of play out as.
I find the common denominator for many people that I deal with is, it's very simple, lack of hope. It's sort of like they have reached a point, a crossroads, and they don't know where to turn. They're totally paralyzed, frozen. And they're trying 10 different things at once, and they're going like the hamster in the wheel, the circle, 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 and they're not getting anywhere. And it is my job or my service to try and encourage clarity, and from the clarity, avenues will start to open, because what we always need to understand, there's always a solution. The problem is when we're in the middle of it, we can't see the solution. And the secret is, let's clear the fog or the mist, enabling the person to start. It's always baby steps. Start coming out of the quagmire. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, yeah. And so, you know, I mean, I guess for myself, if I sort of think about that, that could be like, I know sometimes when I'm really stressed and I'm just on that treadmill, like you talk about the mouse on the hamster wheel, or the hamster on the hamster wheel even, that, you know, I can be so caught up in having to deliver or get things done or do things all the time that my mind is just out of control, like just focused, that stopping seems like, you know, there's no option. Even sometimes you have to just go, right, I need a pause, I need a cup of tea, maybe I need to just have a bit of space to allow some clarity to come back in. Otherwise I'm ineffective, really. And that's just general, like day to day. That's not when I've got these additional pressures like you're talking about, that may be really overclouding somebody's kind of state of mind.
That's correct, Marilyn. It's and the question is, how do we start to encourage clarity? I mean, how do we get it? And the first thing is, I call it the chattering mind. We've got little monkeys all over our head, and they constantly, it's called our ego. It's constantly chattering, chattering, chattering. Now, the ego, it's not a negative thing. The ego's job is to protect us. But like everything else, sometimes it becomes overprotective. I always look like a bar of chocolate. You know, I love the first row of the chocolate. You eat the whole bar, which we have this tendency to do, and my God, do we feel sick. And that's basically what happens. So the first thing is, I'm going to give this, there's this wonderful book that I read called Eat, Pray, Love. And it's by Elizabeth Gilbert. And there's just the one thing that just stood out at me. It is, this lady, basically, she's lost her husband. She's going through this terrible depression. We don't always know we're in depression until we're told we're in depression, but most of us, we're in some sort of depression. And she's calling to God. She's praying to God. And what's the thing? It's 4 o'clock in the morning. She can't sleep, insomnia, doesn't know to turn left or right. And this voice comes in her head and says, Elizabeth, go to bed. Go to sleep.
Yeah.
With calm down.
Yeah.
And as we go along further along, both Marilyn and myself will start to give you tips that can actually encourage this, how to literally go to sleep. And then basically with the energy to start taking those steps.
Yeah, you're right. Because sometimes, I mean, that could be something that people are even, you know, so overworked, etc., that they're not even getting a quality sleep, which really doesn't help in circumstances when you're in a stressful situation, does it? Like, it just makes it worse. But it's hard when you, like you say, when you're in that situation, to see the wood for the trees, or to see the options that might actually improve, especially thinking about, like, when you've got deadlines coming. I know I wrote a post about one of the qualities of feminine leadership was about when it was a quality of looking out for other people, like being compassionate and noticing when somebody else perhaps needed to take a break, because they might be so on that hamster wheel that we talk about that they don't even realize they need to take a break. And they might be so pressured because they've got a deadline coming up that they just think taking a break is not an option, but actually it would make a difference. And then they'd have that more clarity kind of thing, but they can't see that. So sometimes somebody outside needs to help out and guide or intervene. And so
there are signs. Sorry, just 2 words. There are signs that you are stressed. You start forgetting things. Like when I'm stressed, I have this terrible tendency to leave the keys in the front door. I'm very lucky I live in a very safe neighborhood. We all have stress. I also have stress. We all have stress.
Yeah.
Sometimes you find you're overeating.
Yeah.
That's another thing. If you're going to the fridge more than you really need to, what are you trying to compensate for? What's going on there?
Yeah.
And another thing is, you have your behavior changes. There are outbursts of angst, anger. First of all, at yourself, because this is not who I am. You know, why am I doing this? This is not the person I know, and it's getting worse and worse. And you start shouting at your loved ones, shouting at the famous cashier in the supermarket because she did something and she just lost it, you know. It just reminds me of the story that someone told me about the soup going everywhere in Marks and Spencer. Exactly. So it happens, and those are warning signs. And then the first thing we need to do is we need to start grounding ourselves. And later on, I will go through tips and I will explain. It's fairly simple. The question is, we need to recognize and we have to do it. And take away the guilt feeling. Stop feeling guilty. Stop feeling the negativity. It happens. We're humans.
Yeah.
You know, these things overwhelm us. It's normal. It's okay. Just, you need to take the first step to start dealing with. That is your responsibility.
Yeah.
But this overwhelming feeling, no, get rid of it, get rid of it. It's human, it happens, and the external circumstances that are happening now in December 2020, the lockdowns, the COVID, the fear, the financial fears, it just goes on and on and on and on. It's affecting us all. And that's on top of the regular stress we have, which of course could be affecting your loved one who you're living with, your partner. So you're taking on his or her stress as well. It's never ending. So you just need to say, fine, I'm accepting that I'm stressed. I'm stopping it. Now I'm going to try and see what I can do to help me, because I deserve to help me. I want to be the me that I used to know, that I love, the happier me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I was just going to come over to you, Marilyn. You can add to that if you like.
Yeah,
Or
because it's exactly that. Those signs that you're talking about of being forgetful, kind of being busy and not getting up, all those signs that you talked about are signs that somebody is grieving. And that will call to us. So it's very much related in some ways, and that's how you can recognize that you actually are grieving a loss. And I am not talking about only bereavement here. I'm going to be clear that feeling grief is not only about bereavement, but any loss. And this year we have all this kind of loss that happened to all of us. Some of us are going to feel that they have lost their freedom more than others. We've got loss of financial loss has been huge for some people, for some, and obviously some have got bereavement that happen as well. And with it, I would say that where the stress comes in and where the actual need of grieving comes is very often is the secondary loss. So there will be people this year that have lost somebody through a bereavement. The secondary loss of that would be to actually, they haven't been able to have a funeral, they haven't been able to say goodbye, they haven't been able to actually finalize anything because nothing was there able to actually do that. So that's really adding up. And I think the more that we're not stopping, the more we're actually not acknowledging it, then we get in real stressful situation, and it can end up to be like really critical. So I think it's very important to actually stop. And like you say, where is this stress coming from? What are the signs telling me? Is it something, that I am grieving for? Is it something that is too much suddenly? Is not, I'm not saying all the stress is grief. I'm just saying that it's one of the signs. And it's, I would say it's like stop 5 minutes, have a look what's going on and see, because if all those signs are there, something is happening.
yeah.
And it's time to actually do something about it.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, like you say, loss can be related to all sorts of things. I think when we did another interview earlier with you, we talked about loss of even moving country and losing contact with people that you maybe were able to see more regularly and all sorts of stuff. So we do experience losses throughout, all different aspects of our life. And we do probably just really limit our thought about loss to it is about a bereavement rather than separation and divorces or breakups of relationships and all sorts of scenarios where we had something changed and there's a sense of loss associated with with not having what we had before. And absolutely a big thing with COVID, like you say, loss of freedom, loss of the ability to do it. And now I suppose really where people have been struggling, what might have hit them harder at the moment is we had the possibility of having contact with some family over Christmas, and actually some people in the UK have had that really reduced and taken away from them, and that I mean that came as a shock to me, and I don't really have like an impact in relation to that. However, that sudden change for people when they thought this was the last chance they were going to have some comfort of getting together with loved ones, kind of it's the end of the year, it's going to be we're going to have a nice celebration and get together, and that was taken away from them. So yeah, really difficult time for people this year.
Yeah.
Can I just add one small thing? People look at it as a betrayal. It's like people have been told, yes, do what we're telling you to do, like a child. Do what I'm telling you to do, okay, and you will be rewarded. And at the last minute, they took away the reward.
Yeah.
And just like the child feels betrayed, we as adults, or big children as I look at it, okay, we also feel betrayed. And then
Absolutely.
it starts to affect trust issues. Who do I trust? Who can I trust? And this is another layer on top of everything else.
Yeah. So just want to come on to another question there with you, Marilyn, really about, let's just talk a little bit deeper about losses. I mean, certainly where people have had a bereavement in the family this year, and it has been a really different scenario. Like people have had to try and either, miss out or maybe have a video link, and they really haven't had the same ability to be able to grieve, or when they can't experience those, traditions that we have, I guess, in some way that really support people to start on those grieving processes. So, did you want to comment kind of really around about loss and bereavement and how the impact might have been more challenging this year?
Yeah, because it's, grieving is about completion of the relationship, whatever relationship it is, with a person, with the action, with the, the house or the job. Or so if you haven't been able to say whatever you wanted to say, then it will become very hard. And also the difficult thing with a loss is that you, every time that you come to the first time that you do something different, so it will be the first anniversary, the first birthday, the first time, the first Christmas now, and Christmas is completely disruptable, and so people are going to be very, very, like, what, they were hoping maybe to meet together as a family because they had a lost one, and now they're not going to be able to do that. So when you're not able to actually have a completion, and kind of like rest it at peace, but at a deeper level than just a funeral, like kind of like, what have I not said? Why didn't I complete? What I wish I would have said something. If you start to hear people saying, I wish I'd say that, I wish I'd done that, I wish, is because there is something that is not completed there. There is still things that are not being done and or said or whatever. And that's one of the symptoms you can hear in people in general, So it has been very, very difficult, much more difficult this year than another time. But nevertheless, it's still, for me, loss is a very taboo subject, and that is going to be my message all over, because it's something that we feel very uncomfortable to talk about. It's something we feel that we shouldn't talk about it. We should be out and about. We know we've got like 6 months at the most, and that's it. People are going to be not comfortable. People are going to not want to rescue you. But the thing is, when you're grievers, we don't have an illness as such. We can't be, kind of saved in some ways, or, it just happens. And one big thing that I want to actually put a message through is all grievers are different. And your grief doesn't relate to anybody else's grief. You do not compare grief. You do not compare different things. And that's one of the big things. However people are handling this year in their own way, for the loss that they've experienced or not, it will be completely different to the next person. So if you are in that situation, just don't compare yourself to your neighbors or to anybody else. And if somebody tells you, just get on with it, then maybe that's not the right person to be with right now.
I've had that experience, but I'm not going to come on to that at the moment. But I just wanted to also add that I suppose, like, if you, like you said, have had a loss and you did think that you were going to get together with family, like part of grieving is actually having that opportunity to get together with family and being able to have a space to talk. And you talk about the taboo, like what certainly in my experience, people don't want to upset you, your friends, kind of thing. They're afraid to talk about your loss because they're afraid to see the tears, and how you get upset. They don't, and actually on the flip side, it's beneficial for them to help you to talk, to give you that space to talk to. But I mean,
That's
we're
my
not
first tip.
counselors. Yeah, exactly. We're not counselors, are we? So we just, unless we've had an experience of, grieving ourselves and thought, I actually would love somebody to talk to me and reach out to me right now, then you are kind of at the mercy of really anybody in the family only, or, just trying to figure it out yourself. And it's not easy.
Yeah. I mean, my first tip for tonight, if you know anybody that has lost somebody or is grieving right now, just do ask them about their loved one and pronounce their name and don't ignore them. You will not hurt that person more than they hurt, because they are anyway. So whether you're going to say their name, because very often we don't want to pronounce their name, we don't want to hurt any more than they are. Don't worry about it. What they want is talk about their loved one, be certain of that. So just pronounce their name, put it on their card, a Christmas card, their name, and don't ignore the person that they've lost or whatever happened this year. Absolutely not. And you will be doing them a great favor, because it might be for them a portal for them to start to talk to you, to talk to the and to be heard, to be listened to.
Yeah, exactly. And so I just wanted to come on to another topic. I mean, we're going to kind of still continue to talk about that. We're obviously by no means finished, but just to bring some questions back to Anne, like, loneliness and separation, like at this time of year. I mean, people experience loneliness in the winter blues and the sads in the northern hemisphere, kind of because we've got less daylight and we can't get out in the sunshine. And there's a whole host of things there that, like, people are trying to get through day to day, and would have been probably made a little bit worse now that they are not able to go and do things outdoors. I mean, they're still able to do things outdoors, but the weather doesn't always make it, possible in some places. And so people might not feel like they want to go out and do things. So, what are people, what's going to happen to people really, I suppose, if they're in this state already and they don't actually take some help or start to make some change, and then and maybe what could they do?
Well, look, the first thing I would say is see how, if you can, see basically what is missing in your life and start to take the steps, which I've said before. If you don't do anything, it is a very, very short route to your doctor's pharmacy and pills, and you don't want to go that way, because doctors, their job is to prescribe and not always solve the problem. So they deal with the symptoms and not always the problem. So you don't want to do that, okay? So that's I'll use the word worst case scenario, okay? So please don't go, it's the easiest route. It's what we've been trained to do. I'm not feeling well, go to the doctor. In this case, no. There's certain things you can do yourself, and there's certain things you might need to ask for professional help with. But I would say we'll start with the things that you can do yourself, okay? And it's basically small action steps. Instead of being passive, you need to take responsibility and be slightly active. And that sounds quite scary, but it really, really isn't. The first thing is you have to ground yourselves, because when it's all in the mind, okay, or air it's known as, when it's all in the air, okay, it means everything is hopping from spot to spot to spot and you're all over the place. So the first thing is to ground. And there are many, many ways to ground yourself, okay. And the first thing is I'm like segueing straight into the tips, so I'll start with the tips and we'll see how we go from there, okay. I'll start with some of them, all right. The first thing is the dopamine and the endorphins and maybe the oxytocin. These are all hormones basically which make ourselves, they're natural hormones that make us feel better about ourselves. Okay. I'll go, oxytocin is generally when you have a loved one near you, and that includes a pet. Okay. So if you have a pet, you're already getting your dose of oxytocin from the pet. I'm talking about not so much a turtle, but maybe more the case of a dog or a cat, okay? Or yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Exercise. If you can, and it's permitted, because we're going into lockdown in probably 2 days' time, they're being threatening, and we don't know what the lockdown is going to look like. I'm assuming that everyone is able to at least go out of their front door and do a certain number of steps. I don't know whether it's going to be 1 kilometer, 10 kilometers. Every country is different. Everyone's different. Get out, do something. And yes, it's cold and you might be forcing yourself. So put in a nice podcast if you need to, or light music, all right? Nothing heavy. And then just go for a walk. Literally, the first thing you say, I don't want to do this. I don't want to force yourself out the front door. Get those endorphins running, okay? It immediately calms you down and does make you feel better. Another thing that's even better for the readers among us, I've been reading I didn't realize that, reading reduces stress by 68%. That's even more than walking or any exercise. I only discovered that week. This is a Lewis study at the University of Sussex, if anyone's interested. Reading. Ideally, old-fashioned reading. If you need a podcast, an audio on the Kindle, go for it. That's fine. The only thing I maybe wouldn't suggest is reading the Kindle at night, because it's something to do with backlights that affect our sleep patterns, but that's a specialist point of view, and I know very little about that. So definitely reading. Then I would say simple breathing exercise, okay? It's sort of like a simple meditation. And whenever you feel like it, as long as you feel like it, you decide when you want to do it, throw the rule book out of the window, because it's not going to help you if I tell you to do it every day. It's 8 o'clock in the morning. It's not going to happen. You feel like doing it, do it. Close your eyes. Imagine you're a tree, okay? Imagine your legs sinking into Mother Earth. Imagine Mother Earth gratefully accepting my feelings of loss, my feelings of blues, in certain cases, my feelings of grief, whether it's grief for myself because I have lost someone, the feeling of, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, I'm so stressed. Let it all sink and be welcomed by Mother Earth. And at the same time, from above, beautiful sunshine coming in your head and just pushing all the negative. I call it the icky. I like the word the icky black horrible stuff, pushing it down pushing it down into the earth. And you can do it for as long as you like. If you're at work, you can do it in the toilets for 2 minutes if you need to. If you're at home, you can do it for 10 minutes. You can do it half an hour. You can do it for 1 minute. You do it as long as you feel, until you feel cleansed. That's what I would start off with. I mean, I'll let Marilyn hop in with a few things, and then maybe we'll come back and we'll add a few things afterwards. So Marilyn, over to you.
Just before you do, okay. Well, I was just going to say, I know we've been talking for a little while and I haven't seen any questions popped up. If anybody has got a question or would like to ask a question, do just put a comment in the chat window that you'd either like to ask a question for those that are on the Zoom session. But if you're not on the Zoom session and you're just watching this live on Facebook, you can just put a comment in the comment box on Facebook, and then we'll have a look at those, and obviously you'll have to type a question and we'll be able to answer that for you. But yeah, so just coming over then to Marilyn, I mean, I don't know whether you want to go straight into tips at the moment, but I was thinking also, what about you know, when people take no action in relation to loss and grieving, and then, you know, what some sort of simple steps that they maybe can take?
Yeah, so grieving can suddenly appear from out of nowhere, because you thought it has happened 20 years ago, you thought you were well above it, and you've been strong, and you've been everything that the society is asking you to do. getting on with it, and everybody goes through it. So, you are as well. And suddenly, out of the blue, you're suddenly sick, you're ill, your body is not coping, and that could be one of the symptoms that could happen. Or you suddenly goes in a big depression and you don't know why or how or anything. Because one thing that I will, it will be, grieving is cumulative. So you might be experiencing during along many years, like small losses, a pet, and moving house and moving country, and suddenly a job, and all of those are losses, and you've get on with life, but suddenly you've got a bigger loss, and it might well be that it's like one of those things that it's up to there now, and now you feel completely devastated by one loss, and it could be a bereavement or it could be any other loss. And that is the proof that you haven't completed or you haven't handled any losses. So you could just there is a few things that could happen, or you go into a very deep depression, or your body could collapse, and because you store all the losses and all the things that you're not dealing with, I am sure, are being stored in the body somewhere. And you might find that you're feeling like a loss of your an arm suddenly, or something is heavy on the shoulders, or very stressed around the neck, and you don't know where it's coming from. You haven't done anything, and I would suggest that it's something to explore a little bit, because it's just something that grief is, we don't pay attention to it. We are in societies that tell you to get on with it. Mm-hmm. And that is the word that you can do, really. And I don't, there is now for me is to give the message of like, look after your grief, look after your loss, because something is happening to you, and if you let it, then it will at some point come back. And because we have to remember that we're going to grieve as much as we love what we've lost. Grief and love are very much in the same balance. The intensity that you're going to grieve is going to be in relationship with the love and the relationships that you have with that person or that action or thing. So that's very important to look into it. And it's, for me, it's still unbelievable that in 2020 we're given only in most places where you work, we're given only a couple of days for any bereavement. And we're expected to be coming back to work and be completely active and completely full on, and being able to do your job the same way than you were a week ago.
Yeah.
And it's not possible. It's just for me, it's still unbelievable that this is happening.
Yeah, and actually, it's a very interesting point you make, that our cultures, our societies do really just drive us to get on with it. I remember my mother died in quite a traumatic experience. She was killed on a bushfire on our farm in Australia 20 years ago, but she was actually drowned in the creek trying to get away from the fire, presumably. So she must have just passed out. So when that happened to me when I was 30, I didn't really deal with it. But my father was also saying to me at the time, when we go to the funeral, you have to be strong. You have to be the strong person, because we are here for everybody else today. This is not our day. As a family, we will deal with this after the funeral, but today you have to be here for everybody else. Doing the eulogy and all that sort of stuff, I had to be really strong. So I was brought up in that culture of being really strong and just getting on with it. And painfully, I did that. And it was 15 years later that it actually physically took me out here in the UK when I was living here, to the point where I used to be running half marathons, and I was in the gym one day and I was that low in everything, my whole body. I was trying to do a move in the class, which quite fit person should easily be able to do. But in my mind, I did not have any will or strength to be able to actually lift my body off the mat on the floor. And I was going to see a counselor the next day, like I'd booked an appointment, or that evening, I think it was. But certainly, like all of that suppressing and holding down, especially with a trauma like I experienced, really did come back and bite me 15 years later. And I spent several years in depression, 2 years in counseling, and it took me a long time to come through that. But I didn't even realize it. I didn't know I was in depression. I just kept pushing myself, forcing half marathons, doing more training, losing weight, trying to prove myself better and better and better all the time, trying to compensate for that loss. So, and when I remember when my mum died, I did really want the just world to stop. I was like, hello, don't you all realize my mother has died? Like, and the world just went on. And it was a real big shock for me, kind of, that happened. So we're definitely not set up in a way to help people with any sort of loss that they go through, especially when they're cumulative.
Yeah, and it's very uncomfortable. We're not in a society as well. We need to train ourselves to actually being able to help people that are grieving and that are having just a loss. We feel very uncomfortable because what we want to do straight away is to actually save them and rescue them and make them happy and buy them things and making sure they're all right, which is all great. But the only thing that one person wants is to be heard. We just, they just want to be heard. And I mean, for anybody who is listening, I mean, if you have somebody like that around you, just what they need is hear them. Listen, don't try to rescue, don't try to save, don't try to actually just give them a ear, a heart with ears, we call it.
And that's really important that you say that as well, because it is so, you do just want to help and fix the person and to take their pain away, don't you? It's just natural that we want to do that. But you're right, the person actually has to go through the whole set of emotions. They have to experience all the emotions, really, don't they, to get to a place where they can move forward, really.
Because that's one thing with grief. What's happening is there is a lot of conflicting emotions. So in normal life, usually we go through one emotion after another. So we are angry in that moment, and then we might be peaceful the next moment, and we might be happy the next moment. But we usually experience like it with grief. We're going to go through 3 or 4 emotions at once, and that's where the conflict is enormous, and we don't know where to go, and that's what's lost, just because we're not in control anymore. We're just like completely all over the place with all these emotions, so there is nothing that is linear anymore. There is nothing that I know, Anne, you mentioned Elizabeth Gruger, and she talks about the stages of grief, and when she did that book, I mean, she did say it before she dies, actually, because it's been really still being talked about. But she was talking about people in the last stage of dying. So that was not for the griever, that was for the person that was dying. With the griever now, there is stages, but there is no stages like this has happened and that happened next and that happened next. It's not. It doesn't work like that. That's a complete. Sometimes you're going to be angry, and sometimes you're going to be somewhere else. There is not a stage that you have to go through, and that's why people are very lost with it, because suddenly they find themselves 2 years later. I said, why am I still feeling in pain? Why am I not moving on? And mostly it's because there is still those conflicting emotions that they don't understand. And the completion with a person that died for the bereavement hasn't been all said. They haven't said everything that they wanted to say to that person. And that's one of the things that need to go through. You need to accept that you've been grieving, and then you've got to actually, and then to make the pain, the sadness will be there, but you will allow yourself to be sad. But the pain will not feel crippling, will not feel, completely debilitating. So that's where we've got to actually go next.
Yeah.
I would just add to that, it's like reaching a point of being able to self-love oneself in all the complexities of it.
Yeah, and allow ourselves to be, at every point in different direction.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Very much.
Yeah, that's absolutely, like I say, it's like you can't think of it as you're going to finish one stage and then you're going to start another stage and then you're going to start the next stage, and it's all what you've been through is already complete. There is, it's emotions you're dealing with, and it's I guess not linear, is it? And I suppose that's the same. And I just wanted to come back to one of the points that you made there on where you talked about people getting out and going for a walk, and how sometimes that can be quite difficult for people to just take that step. And I just really wanted to add that one of the sessions that I went to, and one thing I learned from one of the counselling was that if you stay indoors, the pressures can seem worse because the four walls and the ceiling is quite close to you. But when you can get out into the open sky, especially if that emotion has risen up, and if you can go for a walk at that time, that big sky above you makes the problem seem a lot easier to manage or allow that emotion to run. So, it just sort of really want to come back on that. It's so important to get out, even if it's only a short walk, like you say, for 1 kilometer, a 5-minute walk, a 10-minute walk, but give yourself a break. That's one way you can allow a bit of easing happening, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's why the reading, that's why the reading, in a sense, compares to that. It's because you're allowing your mind to break free of the four walls. When you're watching a program on television or on Netflix or one of those, you are being given the writer or the director's version, and the costumes are dressed. This is switched off. Your mind is switched off. You're totally passive. When you're walking outside, or as I've been reading, when you're reading, you're allowing your mind to break free, and that is the point, out of the four walls that I have put it in, because we're the ones who are caging our minds. And the minute we allow our minds to break free, then every perspective starts to change, and we can start grounding, calming, finding solutions slowly. I keep on saying baby steps. And there's one other point I'm going to lead into. People today seem to be very, very, I'm going to use the word afraid. It sounds like a strong word, but the word afraid to reach out.
Yeah.
Reach out. You'd be surprised how many people actually want to help you. They talk about the kindness of strangers. So the kindness of loved ones is probably even more than that. We always feel, I don't want to impose, I don't want to intrude, they must be busy. At the very worst, they'll say, I don't have time, but you'll be surprised at human beings' capacity for empathy. There are exceptions, okay, we'll leave the exceptions aside. Believe me, we've all run into them, okay? People have empathy, okay? And yes, professionals, that's our job, okay? But also friends and family and even strangers. I'm not saying take advantage of it, but if you allow yourself to be open, you'll be surprised how much you'll receive in return. And then you've got this, I'm giving and I'm receiving, I'm giving and I'm receiving, and we're going back again to the endorphins starting to run. It's part of that process.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. So I just wanted to come on now to Marilyn, really, about what are some of the small things. I mean, I know we've talked about some things that what would you recommend someone to do? Obviously, talking is probably a big one.
talking
What
is
if
a
you're
bit.
stuck at home and alone at the moment, like, and you're just not getting that contact?
I think reaching out, you know, you need to make a plan. You need to actually take action, you know, one way or another. I understand that we're stuck at home, but, you know, like Anne just said, reaching out. So reaching out, you know, if you don't have nobody around that can reach out to somebody, to a professional or anybody that you think, you know, we still have Zoom, we still have different things, but you need to reach out, and that, you know, I know it is difficult, but you know, speaking is the best one for somebody who is grieving. Speaking about what happened, what you're feeling, have a good cry, whatever you want. It's not a bad thing. It's actually quite good, and not thinking that, you know, nobody wants to hear. You know, tell people, you know, what you want to do, what you want. You know, it's not a bad thing to, you know, grieving is selfish, and that's it. We're just going to have to say it. I know selfish is a bad word and whatever, but, you know, you need to heal yourself. And at that point, you need to be selfish and look after yourself. So reach out to anybody. If it's not a friend, it could be a professional. And then I think an important point is to actually tell people what you need. You know, it's very simple, but it's sometimes very difficult, because sometimes, you know, oh, but yeah, but I'm busy, or but yeah, you know. No, just tell them, you know, for Christmas, for example, what's your plan? What have you planned? You know, do you want to have a new ceremony? Because, you know, I'm going to lit a candle for David. You know, I need him to be remembered, and ask your friend to witness it with you and to do it with you. You know, have, you know, kind of make a ceremony of something, change things. Let's have a walk where somebody loved being. You know, can you come with me for this walk?
Yeah.
Just reach out to anybody and do a different kind of thing. The little ceremony, I think, when there is a ceremony like Christmas, for example, and everybody's got their own little thing that they do for Christmas as a family or as a group. But when this group has been challenged because one of them is missing now, because they're away in another country, so maybe you want to do a Zoom call, but if you've had a loss or whatever, what do you want to do? What, you know, do you actually say, I don't want Christmas this year? It's fine. Just decide it, tell the people around you, and do what you feel. Do, you know, like I say, be selfish, do what you feel. If you want to say, listen, you know, usually I'll do that with John or David, but this year, you know, after what happened, I want to do it differently. Yep. You know, it's all about taking action. It's all about having a plan, and think beforehand, how is that going to feel? Okay, so if you've lost somebody this year and your friend, you know, kind of invite you to the house, and everybody is going to actually avoid talking about that person, how is that going to be? You know, you're going to be wanting to hide in a bedroom at some point in time during so, you know, maybe you just say that. Maybe you arrive to your friend's house and said, well, I'm feeling a little bit funny. So if I am going away at some point because I need some time on my own, just say it. You know, in advance, plan what you feel, plan what you think. And how, you know, it's very important that you actually like go ahead with exactly what's in your heart.
Yeah.
So that would be one of my.
No, that's a very, very, very good point. And you talked about rituals. So forgive me, I'm going to just lead into that.
Yeah.
The importance of rituals. So those of us that aren't able to celebrate Christmas with loved ones, it's very important, I feel, that you don't decide, okay, there's no Christmas this year, I'm going to hang around in my leggings and on the couch and binge watch television. No, please don't do that. Create a Christmas, dress up, lay the table, make some nice food. If you want to do it via Zoom, that you're all sitting around eating and the Zoom contact, that's fine. If you prefer not to do it, but have the ritual. It gives us meaning. It gives us hope. It cheers us up. So it's very, very important. Make an effort this Christmas, even if it's you alone in the apartment. I can't stress that enough.
It's really funny that you say that, because only today was I thinking I still haven't put my Christmas tree up. So I'm guilty of that myself. But funnily enough, I just wanted to add a couple of things that I do around ritual as well. Is like, one thing I love is to have flowers in my house. So I'll often buy myself a bunch of flowers at the supermarket if I can afford it, for example. I'm not telling people to go and do things they can't afford. And I just like to have them, in my living area where I am. And so when I see them, they can just bring a smile to my face. So there are little things that you can do that will make just that minuscule kind of bit of relief for you, that will start you on a process of actually allowing you to get a little bit more freedom from the processes that are going through in your mind. Another thing, I do love at Christmas to do a jigsaw puzzle. And for years, like when I have been on my own, and maybe this is something that you can comment on. Sometimes people who you might have around your circles might say, well, I don't want you to be on your own at Christmas. And I've always been, I'd love to be on my own at Christmas. It'd be just like bliss, so that I can have the day to myself, for example. And I've had friends around me that have said, I'm not going to let you do that. You need to come to my place for Christmas. So they've been very insistent, and I've gone and done that because, and it's been a nice time. Like, I'm not saying that that's not something that is great to do, but there may be people that do feel pressured into doing something they don't want to do. And then like they don't have that grieving space, or maybe that space that they're looking for. But one of the things that I love to do on Christmas Eve is get everything off the table, get a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle. And because normally I'd been working up until Christmas Eve, I've got Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and Boxing Day. I usually finish it on Christmas Day, but to get that thing done, and I'll just have some cheese and some wine. I'll have a proper Christmas dinner where I'll cover up the table with a cloth and put a tablecloth on it so the jigsaw can remain there. And like, me and my boyfriend will have a lovely Christmas dinner over the top of the jigsaw. But once it's done, that cover's coming off and I'm back to wine and just a jigsaw puzzle, which for me is like, I love that about Christmas. He's not so fond of it, but for me, that's my ritual kind of thing. So yeah, if you do have something small that you can do, and be happy for you to kind of think about those things. And
there is a message from Addie.
Yeah, you're right. I just noticed that as well. So do you have any advice for a single people with no little family who are feeling lonely in terms of having hope for the future? Alan, would you like to make a comment on that one first?
Yes, first of all, there is always hope. There is always a solution. We just need to go inside and find it. And sometimes it's a process. To be specific, nitty gritty, like giving a quick answer, I would say, is there someone that you can help out this Christmas? Now, I understand the lockdown's coming in, every country's different. I mean, are you permitted to maybe go and help someone? I'm going to throw out the equivalent of a soup kitchen, if you have something like that in the UK, or helping out, again, this is under the COVID rules, I understand that, or helping out at maybe an institution, just helping them with Christmas, if you permitted in it, then I would definitely, by giving, you are receiving. I think that could, again, I don't know what the COVID rules in the UK are. Where we are, it's slightly different. Some rules are worse and some rules are easier. That is definitely one thing. Is there an institution? Could it be a hospital? A old age home might be problematic because of the COVID, unless that old age home has already been, there's sort of vaccinations there, I don't know. ask around if there's anywhere you can go and actually help some people, okay? That would be a great, great thing to do. Another thing is, and assuming that is not possible, is there a dog shelter nearby? The dogs need to be fed also on Christmas Day. If there's a dog shelter near you, go and feed the dogs. The dogs might need to be walked. Take the, say, can I take the dogs for a walk? Obviously, they'll give you the small, easy to handle ones. Just do something. You're giving to someone else, and this is the way you're going to receive. Plus, as we talked about before, you're getting out. You're getting out of the four walls. Yes, you have to do a bit of homework, see what's permitted, not permitted in COVID. Ask people, they might have other ideas, okay, because they're on the ground. They're on the ground in the UK, they know what's permitted, what's not permitted. I can't help you, but so-and-so might be able to. Try that, Hadi, and see if you can find a solution that way. That's what I would suggest.
Yeah, I'll hand over to Marilyn in a moment, but I just wanted to also add that one of the things that I think is like, if you're lonely and you don't have anyone around you and you don't want to be alone, but it's affecting not just Christmas, a longer term future for you, certainly things like trying to find maybe a group where they're like meetup groups, for example. I started a meetup group called the Self-Exploration Meetup Group. Well, I know some people came through that group tonight who were registered on this event, and I've actually put it onto my Facebook feed as the live feed from here. So there are some places where you can find, and even if you go onto Eventbrite as well, there might be free events that are chat events, maybe not networking events. And I don't mean networking events in a way that you are forced to go and sort of talk to people, but there might be some sort of coffee chats that are a little bit more sociable, that are online even, especially when we're locked down, that you can get some kind of relief of someone to talk to. Now, one of the reasons I set up the Self-Exploration Meetup Group was to take lonely people out, because most people don't realize that they're depressed. They might be lonely, they might have anxiety, they might have all sorts of other things. They might have stopped seeing people and going out because they are just not coping with situations or don't want to be around people. So I started that walk group to take a person for a 30-minute walk, and it was a very gentle walk. I would just meet them in either Hampstead Heath or Regent's Park, go for a 30-minute walk, and just allow them to talk to me and tell me whatever they wanted to talk about, and just have a gentle walk and a gentle conversation. The reason why I say gentle walk, because I don't know what people are going to turn up with, like what's their ability like in walking, especially if they haven't had any walking and they've been locked in at home. So, there's meetup groups, there's places where you can go where you might be able to get onto sort of a chat forum, maybe a coffee chat. Look for things like that, maybe that where you can have a conversation with people. That you don't necessarily want to be in an event where you're just going to be trained, because you don't have any interaction with people. Like ideally, I would have liked this event to be a little bit more interactive with people, to be able to ask questions to us like face to face, but we don't have many people on the Zoom sessions. But there are definitely coffee chats or groups maybe that might be in your hobby or your interest area that are general, but also if it's related to something like grief or something like the stresses or the problems that we've been talking about, there's certainly groups for that. And you can certainly reach out to Marilyn and Anne, for some help, and I'll put those contact details up again. We're just going to go over to Marilyn to see what else you would like to add around, people who are suffering with little or no family, what they could do to have a hope for the future.
Yeah, I mean, it can be different thing. When you're lonely, maybe you don't have the strength, so you feel like a little bit, but you need to take the first action. And for me, the first action is you can have a look at Facebook group, like Marilyn said, about what could be your interest or things that are affecting you. I also would think that there will be some community centers around you as well, that they will be doing things, and reach out. I've got in my area, we've got a Facebook group for really my small area in London, and I can see it quite often, people kind of reaching out and say, I am doing that, I need a bit of help with whatever, and there is like people that actually say, I am available whenever you want to. I can walk your dogs whenever you want to. I can, come with a van and move you. There is people kind of reaching out for all kind of different things. So I would suggest a little bit of taking that first action of not staying on your own, and be a little bit brave and courageous and take that first leap forward and reach out.
Yeah.
Reach out. There will be somebody there. And but don't stay alone. That's all what I want to say, really.
Yeah, and in relation to hope for the future, one of the things that I want to add to that, really, in relation to some of the work that we do together, is there's so much that you can do in relation to having a more kind of purposeful way of creating and being in control of your own future. There are tools and techniques that you can learn also about how to create your, the things that you really would like to focus on them, rather being like, when you talk about hope, I also think that maybe the problems that you hear, like the news, which is always like negative broadcasting, and all of the problems that we're having around us, can feel quite oppressive, in that we are out of control and can't take any action. And then if you just keep embodying yourself or embroiling yourself in that world, it will just seem like there's no end and there is no future. But actually, you can take a step back from things like the social media, the news, and like listening to all of the sagas that are going on, which is really what they are. People are expressing their feelings, their dramas, their sagas. They're complaining, they're expressing their emotions about the things that are hurting them, like often in those forums, and it can be quite overwhelming. So certainly there are tools and techniques that you can use. So do follow myself on Instagram and connect with these people for some tools and techniques about how you can be more creative in controlling. And it's often about like having a vision about what you would love, and then knowing from what you would love how you can make that happen, and how to keep yourself in that process of making it happen.
Yeah, the word is passion. What is your passion? It doesn't matter what age you had this passion to do something, and you go back to how did you feel when you could have been 20 or 15 or maybe 40, when you were doing something that made you jump out of bed in the morning, you're going to do it. You go back to that feeling, and then you see what caused that passion, and from there you lead on, because we all have the power within ourselves to make these amazing changes. A, we need to allow ourselves to have that power, and B, we need to allow others to help us, if you want that, of course.
Just had one person admitted, and she's running very late. Like she's obviously way late because we're just about to finish the session. I just also, sorry, yeah. I'm just actually going to just make a note to the people that are actually on the call today. And I will post this on Instagram, on Facebook as well, because we have come up to time. I know I'll just ask for some final comments in a moment, but certainly because we haven't had quite a lot of chats going on, the comments at the top of the chat window have got both Anne's Instagram and email address, so you can direct message the DM on Instagram to contact Anne if you want to copy those details off the screen from the chat session there. And also Marilyn's got a Facebook group there, and also her Facebook and also her Instagram, which do copy those details down. And so I'm just going to get these two lovely guests that I've had, both Anne and Marilyn, this evening, to just make some final comments there. Welcome, Jocelyn. And we're just about to finish up. We started an hour ago, so but it's recorded and it's going to be live on Facebook, so you can watch it again.
Do you have any more questions? Anybody's got any more questions though?
Yeah.
The last question, I don't mind. No.
So yeah, just whatever. What would you like to sort of say, really, I suppose, in sort of wrapping up tonight, in that I know we've given some tips out tonight how people can make some sort of like small changes that are possibly manageable if you're in a really situation where you're struggling and massively challenged, and it does feel like it's really difficult to make some changes. And we have talked about problems, but just, is there anything that you wanted to kind of add that you didn't talk about tonight, or that you wanted to comment on?
If I may.
Yes.
Go.
There's just one thing, and this actually came from a lady called Courtney Carver. And it's find hope in the least expected places. Just be open. As long as you're open and you allow things to happen, things are going to happen. I keep on saying we're on planet Earth for a reason. Okay, we're not just here. Things happen if we allow them to happen, and that allows us to live life in the most unexpected and miraculous ways. So just be open, look at each day as something new, something different, something with possibilities, and you will be surprised.
Wonderful.
And for me, I would say that, it's about finding a new meaning of life. So I always like that sentence of what is recovery. And recovery is finding a new meaning for life without the fear of being hurt again. So just, kind of, that if you've lost someone or your life has changed, but that doesn't mean that your life is finished. So it's just finding a new way of life, a new changes, and adapting and moving forward with it, and finding that it is a catalyst for something else is going to happen.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Beautiful. Okay, well, I think we've covered quite a lot of topics tonight. It's been a fabulous conversation. I've really enjoyed having both of you on tonight, and
Thank you.
hopefully we've reached out to some people and we've been able to provide some assistance for people there. And just to finish off, I'll just say, like I said, this video will be on the live feed on my Facebook group, which is the Self-Exploration Facebook group. I haven't actually pasted that up here, but wherever people found this, like I know some of you come through Eventbrite, and I know some of you have come through my meetup group. I'm actually going to post the link there, which will have this video on YouTube for you to watch again, and it'll have the contact details of people. And also I'll post the links to contact Anne and Marilyn if you'd like to have any further discussions with them or get some help and support, certainly over this next festive season where it can be difficult for people. So lovely to have you on. Thank you very much for all your wonderful insights, Anne and Marilyn, and the lovely tips that you've been able to share with people. Cool. And hopefully we can help some people who are suffering, and hopefully they won't suffer in silence, but they'll reach out to us.
Wonderful.
No problem.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I'm just, oh, they've all gone. Well, Anne's gone anyway. I'm just
still
gonna,
live on. We're still live on Facebook.
I'm gonna stop that. Stop the live. Okay.
Great.